welcome to your snack sandwich. Today I have a video on Ponzinomic snack sandwich. Okay, it's an anti-dump mechanics that I've seen in DeFi. I kind of did a brainstorm today and just thought about all the different ways that projects try to dissuade or discourage or incentivize people to not sell their token. Because in essence, that's what every project wants, right? They want people to buy their token and they want people to not sell them, more importantly, right? So how do they do this in DeFi? There's many different ways, there's many different models. There's a lot of projects that are using hybrids of all these ideas, and some that use this idea and some that use that idea. So I'm not going to really point at any specific project in this video. I'm going to more like talk about the concept of how those systems work, and then when you go looking at projects, you can kind of have a background and idea of if they are employing any of these, because what they will tell you is if they are employing any of these systems effectively, then in all likelihood, the price of that token should stay stable, should stay the same, or go up depending on FOMO and people buying into it and stuff like that. So let's go over to the slides and kind of go through each one of these ideas in full. I'm going to try to do this as fast as I can again, okay? So here's a checklist of all the things I will go through. I'm not going to read it to you, but you can pause the video and look at this. And these are the things that I'm going to cover today, okay? If you would like to support the channel, I would suggest you to check out the secretsandwich.xyz. It's the Secret Sandwich NFT project. You can come here, you can mint an NFT, or you can come and check out your NFTs. Okay, so let's get back to it. So the first one is governing power. So most governance tokens, most tokens that projects emit, they call them a governance token, and that governance token will give you some governing power over that protocol. So things like changing the features, changing the code, changing the protocol itself, maybe changing the fee structure, any kind of this stuff. Usually the governance power allows you to control some of the treasury. So if that treasury has a big bag of money and they are like, how should we allocate this? What should we use this for? What should we spend this on? Usually the governance DAO will take care of that. Well, they will put up a proposal and vote on it, right? The next one is emissions directions, and then therefore bribes. So if you think of some protocols, they allow the holders of their token to decide where do their emissions go, where does the inflation of their token go, what do they reward, and so forth. And then because they have that power, sometimes other projects will bribe them to direct the emissions at their token or their liquidity pool, okay? And the last thing that this governance power kind of holds for people is some sort of social justification or clubs. Like you can say, oh, I am a part of this community because I hold this token. Now, all of these can encourage people to not sell, but they're probably not enough per se, especially as DeFi develops and more and more ideas come out. So one of the first ideas that came out was the X token. So instead of selling the token or holding the token, you would put the token into some contract and get back an X token, an X version of that token, just as a receipt token that you put your token in there. Now, usually this is incentivized, or this is rewarded with inflation emissions APR. So more of that token will be going to you because you have staked your token. This is kind of where the staking idea comes from. And this is the first one to do this would probably have been Sushi and the X Sushi token. So another concept that usually comes into play here is some sort of fee sharing. So the protocols always charge fees for users to interact with them, to do the things they want to do on that protocol. And those fees are generally shared with people who stake or some of the other ideas below. But the first idea was X tokens get a fee sharing. Now, a lot of the ones below that I will talk about after, they also have fee sharing built into them. So fee sharing is a big aspect of getting people to not sell their tokens, okay? And the other key feature about these X tokens was that they weren't locked. So you could take your tokens out of the staking contract anytime you wanted and sell them, okay? Moving on. So the next thing we have is APR on LP, okay? So this is where you would take your token and the token that you used to buy it. So let's say my token was Caesar. So it would be ETH and Caesar. If I had Caesar, I could take some more ETH, put it together, add to the liquidity pool, get some trading some trading fees and usually some inflation. Okay, now this is kind of old DeFi, but it still happens prominently all over the place. Okay, so if you put your token inside with another token into the liquidity pool, generally you'll get some APR, you get some further rewards. So that incentivizes you not to sell because, hey, you know, I'll get APRs if I use it instead of selling it. However, oftentimes it does, you know, cause selling of half the token. So if I get 100 Caesar tokens, I'm going to sell half of them, and then I'm going to put the ETH and the Caesar together to farm this APR. So it doesn't kill selling, but it slows it down, so to speak. Now, some of the benefits and ideas to consider about this is it deepens trading liquidity. So the more people that do this, then the deeper the liquidity is, and then the less volatile that token will be, right? One of the bad things about it is that it's rented liquidity. So they are, because you can leave anytime and you can just leave. And because you're leaving, then you will probably sell all of it, right? And then they don't have that deepened liquidity anymore as more and more and more people leave. It is inflation-based APR, so it doesn't really, it's still, you're diluting yourself basically. Like the APR is diluting you, and your token is generally going down in value if all things stay the same, right? But another benefit of it is it's not usually locked. Okay, for most cases, you're not locking up your LP tokens. You just stick it in there, and you can leave at any time you want. Okay, now, as these ideas were out for quite some time, all the things I've said so far are pretty standard stuff that happened in DeFi summer 2021, right? So after that, people started thinking of better ways to deal with this, right? And the first idea was V tokens, so vote escrowed tokens. So this is generally where you lock up your tokens for some period of time, and because you've locked up your tokens, you get some benefits, okay? So one of the benefits is that you get boosted APR. So generally speaking, what that means is it's a take and give. So the people who aren't locked, right, or the people who are locked for less than you, they give up some of their rewards and you take them. That's generally the case. It's not like they're minting extra rewards, so increasing inflation for people who've locked, not usually, right? But for the most part, you're getting some boosted rewards if you do decide to lock up your tokens instead of somebody who doesn't lock up their tokens, right? Generally speaking, these VE tokens allow for the governance ability to direct emissions. So instead of just holding the token and directing emissions, you have to lock it, and then you can direct emissions, and then you will get to those bribes that I talked about in the governance section, okay? Now, most VE token models are non-transferable. So once you've locked them, they're stuck in that wallet. You can't sell them, you can't move them, you can't give them away, you can't pile them up into another wallet. So this is a good thing and a bad thing. Like it keeps the governance idea like sort of dispersed. Like it doesn't allow for the clumping of all that governance power into a single entity. However, it does have issues of if you want out, you can't get out. And if your wallet gets compromised, then there's no way for you to recover this. You're basically giving up this power to the compromise, to whoever basically took over your wallet. Okay, moving on. So then with the VE token, they came up with this idea of a VE NFT, so vote escrowed NFT. So it's very similar to VE token, but instead of locking your tokens and them being non-transferable, they are transferable because these tokens are stuck into an NFT. So again, it's time locked. Again, you get some sort of boosted APR usually, and sometimes not, right? And you get to direct emissions and gain bribes. So it's almost exactly the same, but instead of being non-transferable, it's transferable. Now the reason why that this one's transferable is because it's an NFT. So if you look back at this one's non-transferable. And if you think about why would it have to be? Because everybody has different locking times, okay? So it kind of like, it couldn't be traded like in a fungible ERC20 token standard, but I guess it doesn't necessarily have to be locked. Like they could have sent a share token of difference, right? But it would have to be a new token for every single person. So the NFT solves that problem. Is the NFT can have the perimeters, how many tokens you've locked, how long you've locked them, and then you can trade that NFT. Okay. So the next idea we have is O tokens, which are option tokens, okay? Now, options, for those who don't know, it's basically the ability to buy in the future, okay? So at a certain price. So basically what this is think of it this way. Instead of them giving you their token, they give you a token that is an option to buy their token, okay? Now, generally speaking, this option to buy the token is at a discount to what you would buy in the market. So people will actually exercise it and use it, right? But if you think about it, because you're only getting an option and you have to pay for the token still, then you are paying actual money or assets for your rewards. Instead of just farming rewards, you actually have to buy the rewards, okay? But you get a discount. So that's how they incentivize you. Like instead of giving you 100 tokens, they will give you the ability to buy 100 tokens for the price of 90 tokens. So then you're actually getting 10 free tokens, not 100 tokens. But it's still kind of a solid idea, okay? Now, when you buy the tokens, what the benefit of that is the protocol itself can use what you paid them in to build up like treasury value, right? Or protocol-owned TVL, right? Or they can use it to build up protocol-owned liquidity. So maybe they ask you to buy those reward tokens with the LP token of that protocol. So, you know, Caesar ETH, if you bring Caesar ETH tokens, right, then you can buy more Caesar tokens at a discount. Right? So this is the kind of idea, okay? Now there's also the option of having these O tokens expire. So if you have these O tokens given to you, if you've claimed these O tokens, and then you decide like the price has gone down, and you decide it's not a good deal anymore by the time you want to exercise them, then maybe they will expire and they've given nothing then. The protocol has given no rewards out. So that's a benefit of these O tokens. I kind of like the idea of O tokens, and I hope that more and more protocols do develop this and work on this idea and build up ideas around this O token system. Okay, moving on. The other option is the collateralization of that governance token. So basically you can some protocols have this natively inside, and some protocols, you know, they would ask you to go to some other protocol to collateralize your token. So if you think of it this way, like you take the Caesar token and you stick it in a contract, and then you borrow some stablecoin or something else. You borrow something against that Caesar token. So you don't need to sell it because it's sitting in the contract, and you can get that monetary value to do the thing you want to do by simply borrowing it, right? But there is the idea, you know, of some issues with that. Like, first of all, you're leveraging up, so which is a good thing. You know, you have $100 worth of Caesar tokens, you borrow $50, now you have $150 worth of, you know, assets that you can kind of do stuff with, and you can leverage it up. I mean, you can also loop it, and sometimes like go super degen, right? Usually speaking, in most places that I've heard of, that this collateralization and then borrowing is a non-taxable event, so that USDC or whatever it is you borrow, you don't have to pay tax on it, which is generally speaking a good thing. Now, of course, you have to check with your local authorities on whether or not that's the case for you. One of the risks is liquidation, because if Caesar token goes down in value, you might get liquidated. They will sell your Caesar token, and then you'll be stuck with just the USDC that you borrowed or whatever. And that would then be a taxable event. So you got to watch your liquidation. So this is usually something that you have to consider. And the last thing, what I didn't write here, which I should have wrote here, is the consideration of interest, right? You usually, when you collateralize something and you borrow another token, you have to pay interest on the stuff you've borrowed. So you should consider that. And then the last thing is like third-party contract risk. You're now usually, in most cases, you're exposing yourself to another protocol, and you might not want to take the risk with your assets of like taking your Caesar token and putting it into another protocol, and then that protocol, if it gets hacked, you will lose your Caesar tokens, right? So those are some of the considerations about collateralization. The next thing is redeeming, and redeeming, it generally means giving the token the Caesar token back to Caesar and getting something in return. So maybe you gave me a bunch of USDC, I give you a Caesar token, some Caesar tokens, and then you did stuff with the Caesar tokens and you came back to me and you're like, here's your Caesar tokens back, give me USDC. Okay, so this is a common use. You see this around DeFi, but it's not as popular because of some of the the bad parts about it. So obviously you're not selling the token because you're just giving it back to me, and I'm not going to sell it. Like I would put it to work or something like that. Generally speaking, the protocol will take the tokens you've given them back and either burn them or recycle them. So when I say recycle, I mean maybe put them to work, like maybe re-add them to emissions, or to add them to the protocol on liquidity or something, like put them to work instead of them having to mint more tokens, right? And then now generally speaking, the bad part about this is it depletes the treasury. Like Caesar has 1,000 USDC. He's given out 1,000 Caesar tokens. 100 came back and were redeemed. I have to give them some of the USDC that the protocol, the Caesar protocol owns, right? So generally it depletes the treasury somewhat, and the treasury will go down in TVL. So that's generally why protocols don't really want to give it back. It's like the old pirates saying, take what you can and give nothing back, right? Moving on, tax tokens. So tax tokens, this is not really like a mechanic that people put on a protocol to dissuade selling, but it definitely has an influence on selling. Okay, so a tax token is anytime a token is transferred, a small portion of those tokens are taken away from that person or from that transaction. Okay, so for example, if I had 100 tokens and I sold them, I would get maybe only 99 tokens worth of value, and 1 token would be sent somewhere. Okay, now each tax token is different, so you have to look at every single tax token you're talking about or you're looking at and find out where does the tax go. Okay, but as you can see, so buying and selling is considered a transfer. So when you're buying or selling, generally speaking, that has a penalty for buying and selling. So sellers don't sell because, if I sell it, I get taxed, right? So there's that. It does have that ability to decrease selling, right? But it also decreases buying as well, right? Because people know when I buy this, I get taxed, and then when I sell it, I'm going to get taxed again. So maybe I shouldn't do this, right? It reduces trading volume of that pair. So that pair doesn't have a lot of trading volume, and trading volume generally is good for many things. Like it gives trading fees to perhaps the protocol who holds the trading pairs, as well as it perhaps the people who created the trading pool, the liquidity pools, they get some trading volume. Generally speaking, trading volume is kind of what makes DeFi go around. If there's no trading volume, then the thing kind of becomes stagnant, right? No fees anywhere. The tax token can be used to build protocol-owned liquidity or protocol-owned token. So if I said like your specific tax token is sending that tax to build liquidity, and then maybe stake that liquidity, lock that liquidity, burn the liquidity pool token, then that's good, because then the liquidity is getting deeper and deeper permanently, right? Or at least long-term or predictably, right? So that's kind of good. Or maybe the treasury just gets more, but oftentimes, tax tokens just go to the owner of the tax token. So dig deep into this, but it does still discourage selling. So I believe it has a place inside this presentation here. And then it's sketchy. Like a lot of people think that tax tokens are sketchy and not clear and not fair, and they shouldn't be doing this. And some people, there's two sides of the war camp here. There's people who believe it's good, and then there's people who believe it's unfair and it shouldn't be done. Okay. Bonding. So bonding is where is very similar to the options, the O token I talked about before, but this is instead of like giving the option to buy, it's just straight up, you give me this stuff and I will give you that stuff in some period of time. Okay, so often the times is they'll ask you to bring liquidity pool tokens. So Caesar ETH, bring me Caesar ETH, and you give it to me, and then I'll give you more Caesar, like more of the value in Caesar tokens in 2 days, 3 days, 5 days, 6 days, 1 week, whatever that protocol specific time frame is, right? So this is a way for a protocol to build up protocol owned liquidity. So you bring me $100 worth of Caesar ETH, and I will give you $110 based on today's value of Caesar in 5 days. So there's a little bit of risk there. There's when you're bonding, you're generally thinking, oh, is this thing going to go up or down? But as you can see, if they are bonding, then they're not selling the token, but it kind of kicks the can down the road. So when I say it says it delays selling, it doesn't stop selling. It just makes the selling go on in 5 days or 10 days or 3 weeks, or it just pushes that selling further down the road and so forth. But it is very effective at building up protocol owned liquidity or some TVL of some other token and stuff like that. It does dissuade market buying, because if you think about it, like if I can bond tokens and get more tokens, let's say I'm bonding something like ETH to get Caesar token, right? Then why would I buy the Caesar token when I can bond for it and get more of it? So there's the possibility that there is some dissuasion of actually not asking people. It doesn't make sense for people to buy the Caesar token because they can bond and get more, right? Now generally they combat this with like limits on the bonding, or the bonding cannot be done all the time or endlessly or for like, you know, as much as they want. Okay, so bonding. Moving on, we have vesting. Now vesting is where the tokens are locked and they're coming out slowly. Okay, so think of it like I've given you 100, let's say I give you 1,000 Caesar tokens, or let's say I give you 365 Caesar tokens, and each day of the year you can take one of those Caesar tokens out of the pool. So this is the idea of vesting. Now, vesting, again, delays selling, assuming that people have no other reason to hold the token, right? But it does definitely delay selling, and it's standard operating procedure now for any kind of like pre-sale or buying or VCs and stuff like that. They all get vesting contracts now. It's just super common, but it does delay selling, so the selling is just basically going to come later, right? Generally speaking, when they put vesting on rewards, so some projects, they have like you do some action like stake your tokens or create liquidity pool tokens or something like that, and we will give you our token as a vesting token. So they generally call them ES tokens, okay? But if you want your tokens now, if you want to take all of the Caesar tokens now, then we're going to give you a haircut. So like we have you've earned 100 tokens, 100 Caesar tokens. But if you wait for a year, you get all 100 tokens. But if you take them now, you're going to get 30 or 50 or 10. It depends on the schedule or the system in place. But generally speaking, they give haircuts for people who want to take these tokens immediately instead of waiting. And then those haircuts, you got to check, where does the haircut go? Generally, it goes back to the people who are still vesting, who are continuing to stay in there, or it goes back to the protocol for recycling and so forth. Another thing is it incentivizes certain actions. So oftentimes they will say like, oh, instead of getting out early, instead of taking a haircut, you can convert your tokens into this thing, like liquidity pool tokens or something. So think of it like you have 100 Caesar tokens vesting for 1 year. You don't want to wait. Then you can generally automatically convert those into like Caesar LP tokens or something, Caesar ETH LP tokens, and stake those or lock those. So then at least you're getting like some interest or some yield on those tokens instead of just sitting there idly in a contract. Okay, hope that makes sense. Incentivizing certain actions, and then the last one is constant claim EST. So now what this means is like generally speaking, like if you're farming these vesting tokens, then it's like you start building up like rewards and then you convert them into vesting tokens. So generally, like you say like Caesar tokens building up, and you got 100, and you're like, okay, I want to convert them. So then you convert them into ES Caesar tokens, and then those ones start vesting. And then, you know, that you start building up Caesar tokens because you're still there. So now you have 10 Caesar tokens and 100 Caesar tokens vesting. And then it becomes kind of complicated to know, oh, should I convert my rewards into more vesting tokens? And when should I do this? And stuff like that. You shouldn't do it every single day or like twice a day, 3 times a day, because then you will have all of these different vesting schedules. So I don't know. It's up to you, but it becomes a little bit more complex, and it's like a constant maintenance thing, right? A lot of projects are emitting as VE tokens or VE NFTs. So instead of giving people rewards in liquid tokens, which they can sell, instead they might emit them as locked tokens. So it's similar to emitting or giving people rewards as options. Instead, you give them rewards as locked tokens. So this is interesting. So it encourages long-term users. People who would lock would then be the people who would be farming. Like the person who comes and says, I want to farm these tokens and lock them. That's my plan. Then these kinds of people are encouraged to take part in that project. However, it does remove the choice, right? There's no choice then for that person. Oh, I want to be a locker, or I don't want to be a locker, or I want to lock for a little bit, and then after a while, I don't want to lock anymore. So it kind of kills this choice, right? And then it has a less impact on TVL. So what that means is like projects who emit locked tokens get less users. So less people will come and be like, okay, I'm willing to put my money here, because there's a lot of mercenary farmers that just come, farm tokens, dump tokens, but maybe that's what you want to stop. So as a project, the project might consider this a good idea in order to stop, you know, mercenary farmers from just farming and dumping. Okay. Now, last thing we have is these things called relics. These are pretty new thing. I do have videos on this thing if you want to know deeper, but basically what this is relics are not locked. So you can put your tokens inside the relic, right? And by putting your tokens inside the relic, it takes into the idea of like it rewards sticky LPs, they call it. Now what sticky LPs means is the people who are in here longer get more rewards than the new people. Okay, so if you're in here for a long time, then you get better rewards. So your boost goes up basically based on the time you are inside this pool or this position, right? Now that's good, because then people, if they want to exit and sell, then they have to take the conscious decision that they're not probably gonna come back. Because if they're going to come back, then they probably shouldn't exit, right? So sticky LPs, okay, in that sense. Now, what it does do is it dissuades new users, because the new users give up the rewards to the old users. The old users get more than the new users, even if they have exactly the same amount of tokens in there. So it kind of dissuades new people from joining in some instances. And then it's also a complex position, generally speaking. Like it's not as simple like, oh, my tokens are just in there. Like there's all kinds of perimeters. So it's generally speaking an NFT as well. And that's a good thing, because it can be sold without actually dismantling it. Like you could sell this position generally on a third-party market without actually having to unsticky it, right? To dismantle it, take those tokens out and sell them. And then those tokens that are inside there don't have selling pressure, even though the position was sold. Okay, so that's interesting. Okay, I think all of these positions are pretty good. Now, like I said before, this is not a product review. This is not a topic. This is not a video that's, you know, talking about a specific project. So I didn't want to mention any specific projects. However, there are projects on my channel that talk about all of these different ideas. Okay. You can explore my channel a bit more to kind of find, and you will recognize, oh, this is a relic, or oh, what is he talking about here? Oh, that's an O token, or that's a VE NFT, and you'll understand a little bit more. So I think this is a good video for new people to kind of watch and understand what's going on. What are the options currently in DeFi? And I do hope that there will be more, as this 9th slide will be able to be expanded in the future. Okay, I'll put links to this slideshow in the description as well, and I encourage you to check it out if you have time. And I appreciate it so much, and thank you so much for watching. I hope this has been useful, and goodbye.